Book of Job, chapter 3. After this, Job opened his mouth and cursed his day, saying, Let the day perish in which I was born, and that night in which they said, Behold, a man-child. Let that night be darkness, and let not the Lord regard it from above, neither let light come upon it. But let darkness and the shadow of death seize it. Let blackness come upon it. Let that day and night be cursed. Let darkness carry them away. Let it not come into the days of the year, neither let it be numbered with the days of the months. But let that night be pain, and let not mirth come upon it, nor joy. But let him that curses that day curse it, even he that is ready to attack the great whale. Let the stars of that night be darkened. Let it remain dark, and not come into light. And let it not see the morning star arise, because it shut not up the gates of my mother's womb, for so it would have removed sorrow from my eyes. For why died I not in the belly? And why did I not come forth from the womb and die immediately? And why did the knees support me? And why did I suck the breasts? Now, I should have lain down and been quiet. I should have slept and been at rest with kings and counselors of the earth, who gloried in their swords, or with rulers, whose gold was abundant, who filled their houses with silver. Or I should have been as an untimely birth, proceeding from his mother's womb, or as infants who never saw light. There, the ungodly have burnt out, the fury of rage. There the wearied in body rest. And the men of old time have together ceased to hear the exactor's voice. The small and great are there, and the servant that feared his Lord. For why is light given to those who are in bitterness, and life to those souls which are in griefs, who desire death and obtain it not, digging for it as for treasures, and would be very joyful if they should gain it? Death is rest to such a man, for God has hedged him in. For my groaning comes before my food, and I weep, being beset with terror. For the terror of which I meditated has come upon me, and that which I had feared has befallen me. I was not at peace, nor quiet, nor had I rest, yet wrath came upon me. Shalom Aleichem, Assalamu Alaikum. Welcome to Job chapter 3, in which there are 26 verses, beginning in verse 4. Our first difference, we see the name, the tetragrammaton, in the Septuagint versus Eloah. I believe this is a Aramaic term used for Elohim. Verse 5, seize it versus stain it. So we can see it's a lot more serious that the shadow of death is seizing that night that Job was born, versus simply staining it, polluting it, but seizing it meaning to really take that day or that night and put it away, not simply cover it up, but remove it from being from existence. And then it says here, come upon it versus terrify it. So let blackness come upon that day versus to scare the day like it's a person, personifying the day. Okay, verse 6, carry them away day and night. So carrying away the day and night. Again, focusing on removing that day and night from existence, versus seize upon it, focusing on the night portion only. Verse 7, our first significant difference, it reads, let that night be pain versus solitary. So let that night be alone, be isolated, versus pain. Okay, I think it's self-explanatory. It's a little cryptic though, what he's referring to. Is it simply the birth pangs, the pain of labor, or is it pain of existence? Perhaps that's what it is, the latter. Verse 8, he that is ready to attack the great whale, and this is actually, it's not a whale. In the Septuagint it reads as whale in the English. It reads, who are ready to raise up their mourning. Now in both translations, it's not mourning, it's not whale, it's actually Leviathan. In Hebrew, Leviathan. In English, Leviathan, which is a sea monster or dragon. Now, the word that the Septuagint uses, which is this Greek word here, there are no known words for that ancient Greek word. So Leviathan, you can look that up. That's a long study. It should be a separate video in all honesty, Leviathan. The footnote in the hard copy reads, or monster. So this could be he that is ready to attack the great monster. So what is this referring to? Let him that curses that day curse it, even he that is ready to attack the great monster. Who is that individual? Is that a human being? Is that an angel? Or is it Abba, the Elohim of Israel? Is it Hashem? I believe it is Hashem. That's my opinion. Who else could attack the great monster? Who else could erase and remove that day from existence? Only him. Who else is able to curse that day? Okay, verse 9, it says, let it look for light. Okay, let it look for light, but have none. Oh no, actually we're ignoring that. Okay, that's in the Masoretic. Verse 10, gates versus doors. For so it would have removed sorrow from my eyes, versus nor hid sorrow from mine eyes. So removing sorrow versus simply hiding the sorrow. Verse 11, in the belly versus from the womb. So this is talking about a miscarriage in the Septuagint versus died upon coming out of the womb. I think they're both miscarriages, but one is technically dying inside the womb. I think it's a stillbirth versus dying coming out of the womb, meaning perhaps he was alive and then when he came out, that's when the baby dies. This is redundant possibly, but I think it's more of a technicality. Verse 12, knees support me versus prevent me. So the knees are supporting him, helping him to be alive versus preventing him from being alive. So I think that's rather significant. You could say that's a significant difference. One is helping him live. The other is saying not helping him live. Unless it's prevent me from not living, or prevent me from, because he doesn't want to live, so it's preventing him from his desire of death. Verse 13, down versus still. I should have lain down. So sleeping versus just remaining still, motionless. Verse 14, another significant difference here. Who gloried in their swords. So this could be a reference to kings who died in battle versus which built desolate places for themselves. Okay, so two very different things. Kings who died in battle versus kings who built like a solitary, a place of solitude, a fortress for solitude for themselves. Verse 17, ungodly versus wicked. Burnt out the fury of rage versus cease from troubling. Verse 18, and the men of old time versus prisoners. And it says here, have together ceased to hear versus rest together, they hear not. So we have one action in the Septuagint. The men of old time have altogether stopped listening. So they've stopped listening to the exactor's voice versus let them rest together, either sleep or permanent sleep, death, versus they hear not. So two actions again. Exactor versus oppressor. Verse 19, significant difference. Feared his Lord versus free from his Adon. The servant that feared, revered, perhaps is another way to render this. Revered, respected his Lord versus free from his Lord. So no longer under his authority, not submitting to his authority either. He's free. He's a free man. So I'd say that's a significant difference, as it says there. Verse 20, bitterness versus misery. Rather similar. Souls which are in griefs versus bitter in soul. Verse 23, death is rest to such a man. Versus why is light given to a man whose way is hid? Okay, so those are, I would say, those are significantly different, death and light. So death is a relief to such a man, versus why did they give light to a man whose way is hid? Now that sounds more like a proverb. It sounds like some unrighteousness going on where you're giving a blessing to a man who is secretive. Perhaps that's what it means. So two very different thoughts going there. Two sentiments. Verse 24, groaning versus sighing. And I weep, being beset with terror, versus and my roarings are poured out like the waters. So one expressing fear, terror, versus groaning and the intensity of the groaning, you could say. The quantity of it. Verse 25, this is a much better segue in the Septuagint, because let's just read it in both. So in the Masoretic it says, my sighing comes before I eat, my roarings are poured out like the waters, for the thing which I greatly feared has come upon me. So he's groaning, he's roaring, and then he's talking about something he fears, which has come upon me. So he's afraid. Once he's sighing, first he's sighing and then roaring, and then he's afraid. And that which I was afraid of is come unto me. So it's all over the place. In the Septuagint it says, my groaning comes before my food. So he's groaning before he's eating, or perhaps he's eating and groaning. And I weep, I'm crying because I'm beset with terror. He's crying out of fear. Why? Because the terror of which I meditated has come upon me, and that which I had feared has befallen me. It makes more sense. It just flows better. It is a better segue. The terror of which I, then we see an omission, meditated. So, versus greatly feared. So of course he's afraid of something. Greatly feared. I greatly feared that which I was afraid of, so it's redundant. In the Septuagint it says, the terror of which I had meditated. He thought of this even before the terror came upon him, and so this has been deep in his heart, in the back of his mind. It's like the worst case scenario that was imagined in his imagination before these events has befallen me. It's my worst nightmares coming true. That's essentially what it is. And then the last verse, it says, I was not at peace nor quiet, Nor had I rest, yet wrath came upon me. Versus trouble, which is raging, agitation, trouble. And wrath seems to be related to Elohim, because it's wrath being carried out on him. He's connecting the dots, not simply it's trouble, random trouble. This is a punishment coming, like a divine punishment, divine wrath. Okay, so that's all for this chapter. Thank you very much for your time. Till next time, I bid you all shalom aleichem, assalamu alaikum, irini mazisu, pax vobiscum, peace be unto you, and maranatha.